Hi, Mike. Bill, are you online? I would just want to. Mike, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can.
Thank you.
Hey, gentlemen, we are live on YouTube right now.
Mr. Faflick. I have 3 o'clock. Are you ready?
We are prepared, sir. We're ready, Mr. President Stein.
All right, thank you. I'll go ahead and call this special Board of Directors meeting to order. I have 3 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started because I know we're going to have some rich communications about today's activities. First of all, I'd like to welcome and like to say thank you for taking this opportunity to appreciate all the things that you are doing as school leaders for your community kids and for all the kids in Kansas. I know that we're all dealing with a lot of issues, things that we're not accustomed to dealing with. Also like to say thank you and greatly appreciate you for attending the first special meeting of the KSHSAA Board of Directors in quite a few years. So we will follow a traditional format, but some of the reports and updates that we generally get at our Board of Directors meetings, we will not get to today. We will wait until our regularly scheduled meeting in September to get those reports. This meeting, we will focus on a very limited agenda, and I think everyone has seen that. With that being said, I would like to welcome our Executive Director, Mr. Faflick.
Thank you, President Stein, and welcome to our Board of Directors. For many of you, this is your very first KSHSAA Board of Directors meeting, and we are very pleased to have you joining us today. We are looking forward to taking appropriate next steps as deemed by our governing board to support interscholastic activities across the state of Kansas. So thank you for joining us today. Thank you for the deliberations that you have already engaged in with your peers and maybe internally, and thank you for the deliberation that is yet to come and ultimately the decisions that are made. We're going to go through, and my job right now is really just to provide an overview of the meeting, and then we'll do a roll call as we move through that process. But just to make sure, if you have not yet downloaded, you should have received from my assistant, Mindy Nickel. Mindy does a great job of keeping all of our board members informed, an agenda. That agenda is the format that we'll follow for today. 2-page agenda, but then we had 8 pages of support material. 2 were provided initially, actually 3, and then that 3rd page was revised. The first page of support material is just a spreadsheet of calendar dates, and it includes a traditional calendar for all of our 3 seasons, fall, winter, and spring, and then potential alternatives, the things that we're going to consider highlighted on that second set of columns. And we had some of the parameters in which we used to make the decisions and how this potential change would be implemented, because we know philosophically there has to be an engagement at the implementation level, and we want to make sure that we address those implementation concerns as they are developed or as this is approved today or considered for approval. And then finally, you received 6 pages of support material that are titled as such, and those are the actual handbook rule changes. Those replaced just a list of potential rules that would need to be modified in order for this alternative season to be approved. We always want to make sure that you know exactly what it is that would be considered, and that set of rule changes starts with Rule 22, outside competition, and rolls all the way through the respective sport rules. Please note that what we are considering today is based upon changes for this school year only. The changes that are implemented today only impact the 2020-2021 school year. We certainly hope that by the time this school year is over, COVID-19 is in our rearview mirror, and we're back to our more normal, whatever that new normal happens to be. Anything that you see on those 6 pages of support material that is highlighted, first of all, every rule is in that is impacted, and that's just in plain text. Then those things that are highlighted and underlined would be those things that you are adopting. All of those are couched in the consideration of 2 levels or 2 thresholds. First, your board approval today. If that approval is granted, then there are some other triggers that would need to be implemented for those things to occur. Some of those are in groups of schools or what we have called bands of classifications of schools. And we'll talk about that as we go through our meeting today. So that's our support material. Hope you've received that, you have reviewed that, and know that that is ultimately what the decisions will be based upon today. I would like to now call roll. This is a dual purpose. One is we want to do a mic check to make sure we can hear all of you. So please just simply unmute yourself as we go through the picture directory and call names. You'll unmute yourself when I call your name and just simply say here. And we'll progress all the way through. We have 78 members of our board of directors, and my understanding just a little bit ago when I checked with Mindy, we had about 73 that had registered, and we plan to have attending today. As usual, the board is ready for action and comes when they're called, and we surely appreciate that. So we'll start with the roll call, and our staff will keep tally so we know how many are here, so we'll know the majority, and we'll know what the number is for 2/3 so that we can add a potential amendment. So first, representing our State Board of Education, we have Dina Horst of Salina.
Here.
Thank you, Dina. Jim McNeese of Wichita.
Here.
Very good. Thank you, Jim. Our governor appointees, 4 governor appointees, Reverend Delvin Strecker of Salina.
Here.
Thank you. Dr. Linda Wiley of Silver Lake.
Here.
Thank you. Catherine Smith, Olathe.
Here.
All right, thank you. And David Abel out of Wichita.
Here.
Thank you. And those are our 4 congressional district representatives appointed by our governor, and we're pleased to have you join us, all of you, in your first meeting. Now we go to our Board of Education representatives from congressional districts and representing large and small schools with Division 1 and 2 respectively. Matt McCabe of Bueller.
Here.
Thank you. Bob Dietz, Smith Center.
Here.
Thank you. Keith Griffin, Topeka Seaman.
Here.
Thank you. Mike Castle, Parsons.
Here.
Thank you. Stacy Obringer Varhal from Blue Valley School District.
Here.
Thank you. Jerry Flanagan, Lewisburg School District.
I just had to resend him the link, so he will probably be coming shortly.
Thank you, Mindy. You did not sound like Jerry there, so we'll wait for Jerry to join us. Mark Richards, representing Goddard Public Schools. Mark Richards. So maybe Mark will join us as well. Craig Nelson of Andale School District.
Here.
Thank you. And our organizational representatives, those advisory groups that support and provide information relative to their professional organizations across the state, and our members of our board. We have Ryan Burrows of Santanta, the Kansas Association of Scholars Bowl Coaches.
Here.
Thank you, Ryan. Stan Boggs from Dodge City, Kansas Coaches Association.
Here.
Thank you. Jason Menard of Douglas, Kansas Interscholastic Athletic Administrators Association.
Here.
Thank you. Gay Phillips of Columbus. Gay is on the road and will join us, I believe, as possible. She represents the Kansas Music Educators Association, so we'll look for Gay to be joining us as her signal allows. Steve Harrell of Tonganoxie, Kansas Speech Coaches Association.
Here.
Our middle school, junior high representatives, 1 from each of our congressional districts, and then 2 at-large candidates. President Alan Stein, Principal, Hill City.
Here.
Thank you, Alan. We've seen Alan. Matt Garber, Principal, Sabetha.
Here.
Rod Smith, Frontier Trail, Principal, Olathe. We knew that Rod was going to be gone, so we appreciate that. We understand he is attending some funeral this afternoon. Court Haynes, Principal of Mays South Middle School.
Here.
Court. Justin Briggs from Comanche Middle School in Dodge City.
Here.
And Brandon Simmelink, Principal McPherson.
Here.
Thank you. Those are our middle school reps. Going to our senior high school league representatives. Based upon size of leagues, we have a number of representatives potentially from each of those respective leagues. Principal Shannon Haydock of Rose Hill. Shannon. Okay. Amanda Greer, Assistant Principal, Andover Central.
Here.
Ken Stonebreaker, Athletic Director, Salina South.
Here.
You, Justin Sizer, Athletic Director Bueller.
Here.
All four representatives of the ABCTL. We hope Shannon is feeling better and will be able to join us as we progress. Rod Whitmer, Principal of Holt from Big Seven.
Here.
You, and the Centennial League representatives, Rebecca Morrissey, Principal, Topeka High School.
Present.
You, Penny Lane, Athletic Director, Washburn Rural.
Here.
And from the Centennial League also, Curtis Simons, Athletic Director, Emporia.
Here.
You, Principal of Larned from the Central Plains League, Dustin Wilson, Central Kansas League, excuse me.
Here.
You, Dustin. Greg Rosenhagen, Principal of Cheney, Central Plains.
Here.
Dylan Dronberger, Principal Victoria, Central Prairie.
Here.
You, Toby Van Cleve, Principal Galena from the CNC.
Here.
Brett Potts, Principal Blue Valley West High School, the EKL.
Here.
Also from the EKL, Principal from Blue Valley Northwest, Amy Presley.
Here.
Principal of Council Grove Flint Hills League, Kelly McDippett.
Here.
Principal Jeff Hines from the Frontier League School, Paola.
Here.
Also from the Frontier League Ottawa, Principal Kelly Whitaker.
Here.
David Blocklinger, Principal of Goodland from the GWAC.
Here.
From the Wichita City League, Principal of Wichita South, Kara Leedy. Kara, okay. Principal from Wichita Northwest, Eric Hofer Holdeman.
Here. Yes.
Thank you, Eric. Principal from Wichita High School East, Sarah Richardson.
Here.
Thank you, Sarah. Principal from Whitewater Remington, Heart of America, Tim Bumgarner.
Here.
Thank you, Tim. Principal of Heart of the Plains from Kiowa South Harbor, from the Heart of the Plains League, Brent Schaefer.
Here.
Principal of Sublette from the High Plains League, Monty Marlin.
Here.
The District Athletic Director for the Kansas City, Kansas Public Schools USD 500, Tammy Romstead.
Here.
Principal of Kansas City Wyandotte High School from the KSHSAA League, Mary Stewart.
Here.
Thank you. And Tammy Baird, Principal of Burlingame of Lyon County League.
Here.
Greg Kelch, Principal of Smith Center from the Mid-Continent.
Here.
Jan Hutley, Principal Alma Labunzi of the Mid-East.
Here.
Casey Seifert, Principal of Beloit from the North Central Activities Association.
Here.
From the North Central Kansas League, Darren Schroeder, Principal Marysville.
Here.
Brad Jones, Principal Oskaloosa from the Northeast Kansas League.
Here.
Roger Perkins, Superintendent, Southern Cloud, Northern Plains League. And Roger. Okay. David Morrow, Principal St. Francis, Northwest Kansas.
Here.
Thank you, David. Stacy Reed, Principal of Burlington from the Pioneer League.
Here.
Thank you, Stacy. And our third page, if you're keeping score at home, we have Superintendent of Moscow, Santa Fe Trail League, Stuart Moore.
Here.
You also Superintendent of Udall Public Schools, the South Central Border League rep, Dale Adams. Dale? Okay, Dale. Shane Holtzman, Principal of Ultimate Labette County from Southeast Kansas League.
Here.
Spa Iroquois Activities Association, we have the Principal of Greensburg, Kiowa County, Travis Powell.
Here.
The Principal of Olathe North, representing the Sunflower League, Jason Herman.
Here.
You Principal Myron Graber, Lawrence Free State from Sunflower League.
Here.
You Assistant Superintendent of the Shawnee Mission Public Schools, Sunflower League Representative Michelle Hubbard.
Here.
You also from the Sunflower League, Athletic Director from Shawnee Mill Valley, Gerald Van Reen.
Here.
Principal Rob Schneeberger from Oswego, Three Rivers League.
Here.
Thank you. Principal of Eureka from the Tri-Valley, Sean Spoons.
Here.
Dean Dollinghouse, Principal of Frankfurt, Twin Valley League.
Here.
Okay. Christina Jones, Principal of Leavenworth, representing the United Kansas Conference.
Here.
Dr. Ben Sutherland, Athletic Director from Kansas City Turner, United Kansas Conference.
Here.
You, Martin Straw, Principal Hayes of Hayes High School, Western Athletic Conference.
Here.
Also from the Western Athletic Conference, Drew Ton, Garden City's Athletic Director.
Here.
Drew, and Principal of Grainfield Wheatland Grinnell, representing the Western Kansas Liberty League, Todd Flynn.
Here.
Joel Kant, Principal White City of the Wheat State League.
Here.
And David Schenk represents the independent schools. He is the principal of Olathe Heritage Christian.
Here.
Very good. Thank you all very much. I understand from a chat, I believe that we do have Mark Richards online as well. Mr. Richards, do we have a, he can hear but not be able to be heard. So we're going to count on Mark Richards to be in attendance. Very good. So staff, that'll tell you how many we have now, and then the majority and 2/3, please. We have 71 present. Let's check the ones that were missing, and those that were missing, Mr. Unruh, would you call those out, please?
Jerry Flanagan. Gabe Phillips. Rod Smith. Shannon Haydock. Kara Leedy. Roger Perkins. Dale Adams.
Okay, so 71, a majority of that would be 36. 36 will be our majority, and our 2/3 of that. And 2/3 only becomes an issue for us if we have to add something to the agenda, and that would be, I'm told, 46. I have a text message from Mr. Perkins that says he cannot get onto the meeting, so I will ask Mindy to reach out to Mr. Perkins, and we hope that he joins us. If that does happen, we'll go to 72, and the majority would jump to 37.
And Mr. Faflick, I'm sorry, it's Mindy again. Jerry Flanagan is here. He has some technical issues, but he is viewing the meeting right now and may be able to speak to you eventually.
Very good. So we know we're up to 72, potentially 73. We'll keep you posted prior to the vote. We'll double check on those that may be missing, and we'll move forward accordingly. So thank you all for going through that and getting to watch everybody's picture on the screen. Okay, so we have Kara and we have Gay. So we are continuing to climb. If you are new, and that's how we'll deal with that. We'll just ask you to put into the chat, and we'll know that you are here. So we've reviewed the materials. This meeting, as all of our board meetings, will be conducted according to Robert's Rules of Order. Those traditional rules include the requirement for a motion and then a second to put something on the table for discussion. Once it's up for discussion, any member can participate in the discussion, and then we will ultimately arrive at a decision. Sometimes those motions that are made are amended, and that certainly is appropriate. An amendment is acceptable with the second. Following discussion on that amendment, a majority of the board would have to agree that that amendment would either modify or replace a portion of the proposal as it is originally or as it is in its current form as we move through this. We will go through an introduction of each of the items. It's not an intent to read those items. That's not what we'll do, but give a little bit of the background on each one of those. Typically, those are done by staff or an executive board member. With so few items, staff will handle that today. As we go through, again, let's talk about amendments. So we talk about them must be germane to the issue. If they are not germane to the issue as determined by our president, then we would ask simply that we would delay those to a future meeting so that there is time for those new items to be out in the field to be discussed. As you represent your leagues or your respective organizations, we want to make sure you have the opportunity to touch base with your stakeholders to make sure that they are able to inform you and potentially provide additional guidance for you and help prepare you for that meeting. So I think we'll be in good shape as we move through that. And again, if it's a new item, It would require 2/3 of the vote of the attendees to do that. We'll confirm the agenda here momentarily. We would ask that, as this is a virtual meeting with our chat feature, that we really reserve that chat for you to tell us you're ready to talk about an item. Just simply type in there next, and our president or myself will recognize that you are preparing to speak and would be next in the queue to speak on an item. We do not want to have the debate take place in the chat because not everybody can hear and see that, and we really want to have everybody benefit from the discussion and the perspective that you bring to each of the respective items. When it comes to voting today, all of our votes will be used the poll feature that is available on Zoom. We have pre-populated the agenda items that we know will be up for a decision. If we have an amendment, it may take us a moment. We have a couple of generic amendment polls ready to go, but if there's a specific amendment, it may take us a moment to set that up, but we can do that very, very quickly. As we're all still a little bit nervous and we really like the poll feature, if we're within 3, our president has asked, and we concur that it would be appropriate to do a roll call vote. Would be much faster than what we just did, but going through a roll call vote will let us make sure we're there. As we do this vote, do know that through the chat feature, those polls are recorded, and the voting record of each of the member is a part of the document. Though it's not in the published minutes, it is available for review if anybody would so ask. If I have anybody joining via phone today from the board, we would ask that you be available for a voice vote because you would probably not be able to, if you're just listening and not using the app from your phone, you would not be able to vote. If you're using the app, you're good. But if you are simply providing a listening perspective and need that vote, we want you to vote, you'll need to be available for a verbal vote when Mr. Stein calls on you. Do I have any board members that are listening via phone and feel like their voting opportunity may be compromised? Okay, so Gay apparently is available. Gay, I knew that you had talked about being on phone. As long as you're good to go, I think we're going to be okay using the poll feature. So I think we're in good shape there. All right, so that takes us through an overview of the structure of our meeting for today. And Mr. Stein, I turn it back to you to prepare to walk through the agenda items that are still before us.
Right. Thank you, Bill. Okay, item number 3. Actually, I'm sorry, that might not be the right item, but it's the first item on my list is to waive the 10-day notice and to approve the agenda as presented. I would entertain a motion and a second.
Mr. President, Greg Rosenhagen, Cheney High School. I move that we waive the 10-day notice in order to move forward with the discussion.
Okay, we got a motion by Greg. Do I have a second?
Myron Graber, Lord's Free State, I second.
Got a second by Myron. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, seeing none. We are ready to vote. Should pop up on your screen. Please vote at this time.
This is a good test to make sure that you're able to vote. If you're not able to vote in the next 10 seconds, if your screen is not showing that poll in the next 10 seconds, we're going to need to know that. We'll keep it up for about 30 seconds so you can vote, and then we'll be prepared to provide the response for you.
Please make sure you hit the submit button at the bottom of the polling question.
74 votes. 78 minus 4.
And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Mr. Unruh?
Yeah, right now, Mr. President, we're showing 75 in favor and 1 opposed.
75 and 1. Motion carries.
We don't have that many on the meeting.
We don't have 76 on?
Unless some people have joined since.
And I don't see one.
Okay, so I think that we're going to do a quick roll call of those that were missing. Again, I know we have added Kara Lady, we have added Roger Perkins. Roger, are you on? If you can unmute and let us know, please.
Now we're missing 3.
Okay.
Dale Adams.
Dale Adams, have you joined? Rod Smith, have you joined? And Shannon Haydock, have you joined? Okay, so we're going to throw that poll out because we can only have 75 vote and we only have 75 in attendance. So please, Mr. Unruh, would we start that vote over again, please? And we'll make sure that we have this system right as we move forward. So we're going to repopulate that item on your screen. Please vote once and then hit submit at the bottom. And I think we're going to be good. If you have a phone going and a computer going, you can only vote via one of those apparatus, not both of those tools.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Please close.
So we'll share those results, and please know that we have 75 people signed in because we have a couple of backups. That is Fran in the office, Brent in the office, Mindy at her home, and my computer. So it looks like we have 79. We actually only have 75 in attendance. That one passes 74-0, Mr. President.
Okay, 74-0. Item carries. Okay, the next item that we have on the agenda is establishing an alternative season. And if Mr. Faflick, if you'd be willing to introduce this item for us, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Happy to do so. And we've talked a lot about this over the past several months because we know we're in a very difficult position for a number of our schools. And while we have a global pandemic and it has impacted literally every life, it has impacted at varying levels across our respective school communities across Kansas. So it was important for our staff to be responsive and to lead with development of a plan that has been embraced by our executive board. And the executive board, while voting 9-0, that vote was to put this plan onto the agenda and to have this special meeting. Now they're back representing their respective leagues or organizations. And we want to make sure now that as we go through this, we hit the highlights. Again, we're not going to review every line of our proposal, but bottom line is you have to understand the why. Our why is pretty simple. We want to provide opportunities for our schools to offer to their students where it's appropriate, the ability to participate in interscholastic activities. We believe in the value of those activities and know that the life lessons learned by our kids should be available whenever and wherever it is appropriate and possible to do so. We know our kids benefit through that participation in the activities that they love. And it is important for us that we offer those breadth of activities so that kids can participate in their favorite activity and have that benefit of being alongside their teammates, their peers from their classes, to be with their coaches who are encouraging them, they are challenging them, they're helping them grow as they keep them accountable to participate on their respective school teams. They like to wear that uniform. This is an opportunity that can be provided for kids with a positive vote as we go through today. It's an option for our students. It's an option for our schools to be employed when it's appropriate to do so. And it's an option for our leaders as they're making some very difficult decisions right now. Our handbook rules define the seasons of sport and the competition limits, and the rules that you have before you and the support material would be modified for this year only with the action that you would take today. What it does is it provides that option if schools cannot conduct an activity this fall. What it does not is make any school participate in a fall activity in the spring. In fact, for those that play all of their activities in their fall sports during the weeks and months ahead, there's virtually no impact. There will be no overlap for their coaches, no hard decisions for kids trying to decide between their activities. It would be business as usual for our schools with a regular fall season, a regular winter season, and the regular spring season. If less than half of those schools within a designated band have a delay, there is zero impact if you are a school that gets all of your activities in. But it is August 28th. And we know that our status right now, we have some schools that are not going to have fall activities. As the days and weeks progress, there may be some others that join that unfortunate group of schools that are unfortunate now because they have no other option. This provides an option for them. If half of the schools in a band are forced to conduct one or more of their activities at a later date, then all of the activities for that school and all of the schools in that band would have a modified spring season, modified only in the fact that it would be delayed. It would be delayed a start of 4 weeks, and then it would begin. It would be the exact same number of competitions, the exact same number of practice weeks, and state championship tournaments at the end of that traditional spring season. Does this, as we established this plan, we wanted to make sure of some things. Number one, it provided opportunities for kids. It does do that. Number two, we wanted to protect the spring sports because the spring sports lost an entire season this past year. And it's not the sport that lost, it's the kids participating in those sports, the student athletes in our member schools. And we heard from them and we listened to them and we continue to listen to them. That's why it's important that we protect those activities. It does protect the spring because it is a full spring season in either of the models, the regular traditional model or the delayed start if you happen to be in a band where more than half of the schools have to participate in that alternative fall. It does provide opportunities for kids. It does protect the spring. We're hoping that as you deliberate today, that you really look for reasons to approve this. Certainly, it's not perfect because there are flaws in any plan when the environment surrounding the development of that plan has the challenges that we're dealing with right now. So look for reasons to say yes, not for reasons to say no. It's going to be more work. I get that. I understand that. We know the impact at the student athlete level. We know the impact at the coach level. We know the impact at the administrative level. We know the impact at the association level, whether it be financial, whether it be additional work. And all of those things can be overcome in order to allow kids that opportunity to participate. Our goal truly is to provide some opportunities for more students, not just more opportunities for some of our students. So how does this get accomplished? It gets accomplished that if you cannot play this fall, approval today, a yes vote today, will ultimately provide an option to play in that shortened designated window in the spring, that March 1 to late April window, only for those activities that are unable to complete a suitable season this fall. If you play this fall, again, very little chance that there will be impact for you unless the majority of the schools in your band have to adjust their season. But if the majority have to adjust it, something significant has happened to the majority of those schools, and we ought to be really looking at this option. It also provides relief for those school leaders as a safety valve, because I said, we know right now where we stand, and the vast majority of our schools are practicing and preparing to play, because we have 356 member schools, but there are enough that this is warranted, and that enough can be one. It can be Kansas City Wyandotte and providing those opportunities for kids, or any of the Kansas City, Kansas public schools who right now have really no option to participate in any of those fall sports. While we serve so many schools and have over 100,000 kids participating, it's not about those mass numbers. It's about the Hopes, the Jakes, the Nates, the Abbeys, and giving those individual kids the opportunity to benefit through participation. So that's why this plan has been developed. That's why this plan is before you, that keeps a fall season wherever it's appropriate to do so, using the left column of that landscape spreadsheet of dates, with a full season for the fall, a full season for the winter, and a full season for the spring. For those schools that have been impacted by COVID and that have had shutdowns, then we have an alternative season for our fall activities to start on March 1st of this upcoming calendar year. So in the spring of 2021, those would all conclude by the end of April at the designated end period of time. There's a reduced number of competitions and there is no championship at the end of those because the championships are going to be conducted this fall for those that are able to continue. The winter season, we hope at this point, will be able to begin on time and end on time with championships. However, if it is necessary to push back, we still have the option to shorten shorten the winter season and not even starting until January 1, if that happened to become necessary, would still allow us to have as an anchor in the middle of that winter season or in the middle of those winter months, our winter championship activities. Then we would begin the alternative fall and the spring sports. Again, the overlap is significant if you are a school that pushes one or more activities to the alternative fall, and the rest of the band of schools doesn't go with you. But that's a very limited basis. Right now, that would not be very many schools, and I'm confident in the leadership at those respective schools and across their respective districts that they would be able to figure out the best plan to meet them. Even if this plan is introduced and approved today, and your school loses a season, you're not required at the local level to participate in the spring. It makes it possible for those that choose to do so. The second page of your list are the parameters, the rules that have been set aside, and some of the conditions to allow for these activities to move forward. The definition of what constitutes a full season, an adequate season. It's not a full season unless we start on Monday of standardized calendar week 7 and go all the way through our Saturday after Thanksgiving with the championship and all of our football seasons. That's not going to happen this year because some of our schools are going to have interruptions. Those that do, this provides an option if that interruption is significant. And then the final thing is just the actual mechanical component of that. All of the rule changes that would need to be occurring are on those separate pages, that 3rd through 8th page of your support material. Brent is sharing that screen right now, so you can see what those are. Really, the majority of this in terms of implementation is around the parameters and around the calendar dates, and that is probably where that discussion begins. So, Mr. President, that's an overview of what these rule changes would be in regards to item number 4 on the agenda today.
Thank you, Bill. Okay, so with that, I see Mike Castle.
Yes, sir. I move we accept or approve item 4 as presented.
Okay.
Second.
So we've got a motion to establish an alternative season and a second by
Roger Perkins.
Roger Perkins. Any further discussion? I see Mr. Hines has a question. Mr.
Yeah,
Hines?
this has now been moved in second and it's open for discussion. I have added
Yes, it is.
an amendment to this motion. That amendment is to move 4A into the 1A through 3A classification band so that 1A through 4A and 5A through 6A are the classification bands.
Okay, Mr. Faflik, can you speak to that
Absolutely.
amendment?
Absolutely,
The
we would like
band.
to do that, but first we would want to have a second before it becomes an amendment ready for discussion. So the amendment has been proposed.
Okay.
We would need a second.
Okay.
Mr. President.
Second, Brent Schaefer, South Barber High School.
Okay, so we have a motion and we have a second for the amendment to move 4A into the 1 to 3A classification band. And it would end up being a 1 through 4A and a 5A, 6A, or 5 and 6A classification band. Am I correct on that, Jeff?
Yeah, that's correct. And I'd like to have the first opportunity to speak now that we've had the second as the maker of the motion.
Okay.
The reason this was put before the group is I think most of you have obviously been following this. It's a big topic in Kansas high schools right now. And 5A through 6A schools are primarily the schools that have seen either cancellations or delays in their seasons already. And the demographics of a 4A school most closely resembles those in 1A through 3A. Today, I ran the numbers on just 4A and 5A. The average size of the town that houses a 5A school is over 80,000 residents. The average size of a 4A community is 14,000 residents. So we're roughly 1/5 of the size of our 5A counterparts. And most of the COVID issues have been occurring in major metropolitan areas. And so as such, 4A more closely resembles those smaller communities. The most likely scenario where there is a need to utilize an alternate fall season is undoubtedly at the 5A and 6A level. This amendment would allow 5A and 6A to have that opportunity without hampering or hindering in any way the participants or the member schools in the smaller size classifications. Thank you.
Okay, Bill, can I have you interject on that real quick, please?
You bet. Thank you, Mr. Hines, for the motion, and President Stein for the ability to share a staff perspective. And I will also turn to other staff if there's something I do not think of as we initially just give a little bit of input on this. And the reality of it is we really struggled. We felt like we needed to go to bands in order to create this, because we felt as if one classification cannot be hanging out there on their own because of scheduling purposes. What this would do would be change the numbers. So you take the total enrollment of the two 5A and 6A schools, which is going to be 36 and 36, which would give us the 72. If 37 schools participated in 5A and 6A in one of the alternative season, that's the immediate implication. Those 5A and 6A would start their spring season in the late March window on March 28th. It's appropriate because the majority of their schools are doing at least one activity that started on March 1st, and that one activity would be the modified or the alternative fall season. And then we look at the combination of 1A, 2A, 3A schools and 4A. The number for 1, 2, and 3 was 123. The new number for that would be, Mr. Garman has done that total for me. I saw him calculating over there. Mr. Garman, it would be
How many? 38, how many? 50, 1 through 4. Oh. Go ahead, great.
No, 1 through 4A total schools. We'll give you that number as we go. But it certainly goes up 123 plus another 32. So 155 schools would have to participate in that. And I think we would get to that level potentially if we have an epidemic that occurs, that as a pandemic reaches in and shuts down schools and shut down programs more than it is right now. What are the implications? It still keeps 5A and 6A together. So there's an opportunity for those schools to be together for scheduling purposes. A lot of leagues have 5 and 6A member schools. It keeps the 1 through 4s together. There's more scheduling opportunities for that. It raises the threshold for that, so it may be more challenging to get to that. That's not here nor there. We simply went as a staff to halfway 1, 2, 3 together, 4, 5, 6 together, because of the number of schools in each one of those classifications: 36, 36, 36, 64, 64, 117. So that's why we went into that band scenario, knowing we needed some in both, and that would be the appropriate response to that. I'm looking at staff to see if any others would notice any other implications before now that we have that implications for what this would mean. Now it's back to discussion for the board. I see no other staff comments, so Mr. Stein, back to you for those else that would like to comment.
Thank you. Mr. Castle.
Actually, I have a different issue. Well, I'll bring the issue up later after we vote on this one.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, hearing none. I will call for a vote. Mr. Unruh? Okay, the vote should be, your agenda item for the amendment should be on screen. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Mr. Unruh?
Mr. President, we have 54 in favor and 19 opposed.
Okay, so the amendment carries. Okay, so the amendment would be to put 5 and 6A in a band and 1A through 4A in a band. Okay. So with that amendment passing, we would go back to item number 4.
Mr. Stein, am I up?
Yes, Mr. Castle.
Mr. President, as I look at the agenda, Rule 22 is not listed as one of the items to act on, but we do have material in our support material rule references Rule 22. So I would believe that we would need to amend the agenda to that portion to include Rule 22. Mr. Fafik, would that be correct?
Yes. So the original agenda did not have that 22, so we can certainly add that, Mr. Castle. That would be an appropriate action because we did recognize following on a final staff review that we should have included this additional reference. It's somewhat covered in the other rules, but we wanted to make sure we had covered everything, so we added Rule 22. If the season is extended beyond Memorial Day due to COVID, restrictions noted apply till the end of this school season.
With that in mind, Mr. President, I would move that we add Rule 22 to item number 4.
Okay, so we've got a motion to add Rule 22, the outside competition rule, to item 4. Do I have a second?
Penny
Hearing
Lane,
none.
Washburn
Oh.
Rule, I second.
Okay, so Penny Lane seconded. Any further discussion? Rob Schnierberger?
That would actually be a different topic after this one.
Okay. So we've got a motion and a second to add Rule 22 outside competition to item number 4. Any further discussion? Hearing none, seeing none. Mr. Unruh? Please vote at this time. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Please close.
Mr. President, we have 70 in favor, 4 opposed.
Okay, so the motion carries to add Rule 22 outside competition to item number 4, along with the amendment to the established of an alternate season. Rob, is this where you would like to discuss?
Sure, just have a question. Now that 1 through 4A is a band, 5th and 5A, 6A is their own band. When the executive board met, was there any discussion at all of 3 different bands, 1 and 2A, 3 and 4A, 5 and 6A? Where I'm going is 1 through 4A. Is 4A now with the 1 through 3A being 1 through 4A? Is that larger number? Is that too unwielding for potential alternate activities? So just wondering if there was any discussion along those lines by the executive board before they made their original proposal.
Mr. Faflik?
Well, I believe that the executive board talked about that because we talked about the banding protocol and looking at them in groups of 2, looking at them as a split down the middle, looking at them individually as separate classifications, and felt as if there needed to be some. The 1 through 4 is an unwieldy number. It's a large number, but that's, it still represents member schools, and we wanted to stay with member schools count, and felt like somehow we needed to do that. Any number that includes Class 1A is going to be a large group of schools because there's a lot of schools in Class 1A. So it just does make that threshold harder to reach, as opposed to this. The reason that we didn't do that is because of the number of 2A, 3A leagues, Rob. We didn't want to see, as a staff, a 2A, 3A league potentially spread apart in the season. We found a lot of combinations of leagues with 2s and 3s together. So that was the real rationale behind keeping those together and not doing the 3 separate groups.
I guess a follow-up would be, I mean, how do the 4A schools feel? I mean, if there's only a handful of them and now they're in with 1 through 4A and there's not enough, I mean, what would they feel if they don't even have that option?
Mr. Hines may want to address that as a 4A school and the maker of the amendment that was now part of the motion. So Mr. Hines, if you'd like to address that, or Mr. Haydock is unable to join us. So he's our 4A rep on the board, but that's certainly up to Jeff, I think, to at least kick off that part of the discussion.
Sure. 4A schools are pretty widely spread throughout the state. And I know I've had a conversation with the 4A representative, Shannon Haydock, about that. As well as Mr. Faflick, just asking for additional information about the banding protocol. So is there a chance that there's a couple of 4A schools near major metropolitan areas? You know, our league has Bonner Springs and Piper in particular that could be impacted where they could lose their season. Yes. To be honest with you, I don't see a scenario or a situation where anywhere near half of 4A schools would end up in that position. So even if there were a couple of schools that were forced to lose their fall season, the ability for them to find others similar in size and to develop any type of a schedule will be pretty limited at best. That being said, we also felt like the number of 4A schools likely to be affected would be so small, it wouldn't be fair to the majority of 4A schools to lump them in with 5 and 6A and possibly completely disrupt the spring and summer participants.
Any further discussion? Seeing none. Okay, we have a motion on the table. We have a second for item 4 with the amendment and the addition of Rule 22. Seeing no further discussion, I would entertain a vote at this time. Mr. Unruh? In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Mr. Unruh.
Mr. President, we have 45 in favor and 29 opposed.
Okay, so item number 4, motion carries to establish an alternative season.
74. Right, so by that action, our member schools that do have a delayed fall season that cannot get to that increment of 1/2 or whatever the designated mark is, or are practicing past the designated date, if they cannot get to those points, they will have an option to participate in the spring. And it will only impact the entire classification when the majority of those schools in the 1 through 4A band and in the 5 through 6A band have to make a change. So I think we're in good shape there. The vote tally on that one was 45 in favor and 29 opposed. Is that correct, Mr. Unruh? So we had 74 cast a ballot on that. With that,
Okay.
I think we're ready for number 5, Mr. President.
Okay, item number 5. Item number 5 is to empower the executive board with additional limited authority for this year only. I would entertain a motion.
President Stein, Ken Stonebreaker, Salina South. I would move that we accept number 5 on the agenda as written.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on item number 5? Mr. Hines, you're
Yeah,
asking.
Mr. President, I do have a parliamentary inquiry since we would be expanding the role of the executive board and diminishing the role of the board of directors. Be my interpretation that that would be a suspension of our standard rules of practice and should require a 2/3 vote. Is that accurate?
Mr. Faflick, I'm looking at you.
I do not believe that would be accurate. I believe that that would be true, but any handbook rule is modified by a majority vote of the board of directors when a quorum is present. And by that action, it does change the responsibility there. So I do not believe that it does require the 2/3 vote to get to that level, Mr. Hines.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on item number 5? Hearing none, seeing none. Mr. Unruh? In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Mr. President, we have 53 in favor and 21 opposed.
53 in favor, 21 opposed, motion carries. Next thing I have on my list, or Bill, do you have anything else that you would like to touch on, any of those? Or anything else you have left?
The only thing on my list was my deep appreciation for the leaders that are part of our board of directors for the way that you have engaged in preparing for today's meeting and allowing those schools that have the need in the days and weeks ahead to have an option for an alternative activity season for those fall sports that cannot continue. By your action today, Kansas kids are going to have those opportunities, and I appreciate that. Thank you for all you're doing to get school started. Thank you for your role in our board meeting today.
Thanks, Bill. I would also like to extend a thank you to all of you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us and engage today for what's good for Kansas kids as well. Just a quick note, our next scheduled meeting will be September 16th. That's scheduled for a 4 o'clock start time, and it will also be a virtual meeting. The final agenda will be sent out around next week. Anything further? Seeing none here. Hello?
We'll need a motion to adjourn.
Yes, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Got a motion to adjourn. Can I get a second?
Rebecca
Morrissey, second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please populate the vote.
President, I don't have a poll for this.
Okay.
I can put one together if you'd like.
Nope. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Hey, Bill, I'm sorry I was late.
Glad you joined us, Mr. Perkins. Thank you for being here.
Somebody go sign out there.